Hi, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the real life of a slave girl in a medieval harem without sugarcoating, romanticizing, or any fairy tale fantasies. This story is not about palaces and luxury, but about endless routine, humiliation, and the constant struggle for survival. You will find out how girls ended up in harems. Some were kidnapped during wars, others were sold off to pay debts or simply for food. Instead of magical cushions, they found themselves in cramped, stuffy rooms where everything smelled of sweat, fear, and cheap incense. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I'm always curious to see who has joined us. Now get comfortable. We're starting. You are not born in a palace. You are not the daughter of a merchant, nor a noble, nor anyone who has ever owned more than one pair of shoes at a time. Your world is small. Your village is smaller still, a collection of uneven huts huddled around a muddy path and a pitiful excuse for a well. You remember hunger as a childhood companion, an itch in your belly that never really leaves. Your memories smell of smoke, sweat, and wet earth. When it rains, the roof leaks. When it does not, the air is full of dust. You do not remember exactly when the invaders came, only that the screams seemed to last longer than the actual fighting. They did not speak your language. They shouted, and you ran, but nowhere was safe. The men who survived the initial attack were tied together and marched away. The women and children, those who could walk, were herded together and forced to watch the rest of your home burn to the ground. That was your introduction to the wider world, the understanding that nothing you loved belonged to you anymore. The journey after that is a blur. You, clutching the hand of someone younger, maybe a sister or cousin, or even a stranger, by the end it does not matter. The march is endless. The food is barely enough to keep you upright, and thirst is a constant companion. You grow used to the kicks and shoves of your captors, to sleeping on rough ground, to sharing lice with those around you. Hope, that last stubborn weed, withers slowly but surely under the heel of routine cruelty. When you arrive in the city, your world grows louder, harsher, more crowded, markets filled with the shouting of men and the frightened eyes of animals. You are displayed with the other captives, prodded and poked and examined as if you are livestock. You realize soon that you are nothing but merchandise now. Buyers come and go, discussing your value with all the warmth of haggling over rotten vegetables. You are not the prettiest, but you are young enough to have worth. You overhear words like obedient and useful. You are purchased for less than the cost of a donkey. Your new owner is not unkind, not in the way you expect, but you are no less a possession. You are bathed, scrubbed until your skin is raw, and given new clothes, which means a rough linen tunic that smells of old sweat and disappointment. They teach you words, not to make conversation, but just enough to understand orders. You learn faster, clean, move, and quiet. These words become the pillars of your existence. They are easier to obey than to think about what has happened. After some time, you are moved again. this time to a larger house, and then again, until one day you are told that you are going to the palace. No one asks if you are excited. The word palace conjures up images of gold and luxury, but what you find is a high wall and a gate that slams shut behind you with the finality of a tombstone. Inside, you are passed from hand to hand, each new mistress colder than the last. The air smells of perfume so thick it makes your head ache, but underneath it all, there is the sour stench of unwashed bodies, desperation, and the metallic tang of fear. Your new world is the harem. The word sounds foreign on your tongue, heavy and strange. Here, you learn quickly you are not special, you are not even rare. There are dozens, no, hundreds, of girls and women, each with the same hollow eyes, each with her own story of hunger, fire, and loss. No one asks where you are from because it does not matter. You are here now, and there is nowhere else to go. You will learn the rules soon enough. You will learn to keep your eyes down, to speak only when spoken to, and to move silently in the presence of your superiors. You will learn that hope is a luxury you cannot afford. You are no longer yourself, no longer the sum of your memories and dreams, but a shape, a function, a tool. Your name fades as quickly as your old language, replaced by a new identity: slave, servant, thing. This is only the beginning. The days ahead will teach you the real meaning of captivity, the dull weight of endless chores, and the subtle terrors that live in every shadow. But for now, you sit in the cold corner of a strange room, surrounded by strangers who look just as lost as you feel. You wait, because waiting is what you do best. And as you wait, you understand. You are not going home. You never will. You might have imagined that a harem is a place of music, silk cushions, and gentle laughter. The stories whispered by old women back in your village promised exotic colors, pools filled with flowers, and secret gardens where nightingales sing all night. But you quickly discover that reality is colder, smaller, and far less beautiful. You are led through corridors so long and winding that you lose track of direction, your thin slippers scuffing against smooth stone. The air is heavy and stagnant. When a door opens, you are pushed inside with a group of other new arrivals. The room is large, but not nearly as grand as you expected. Sunlight squeezes in through narrow windows, casting stripes across the bare floor. The walls are painted, but the colors are faded, and the pictures are chipped by the years. There are cushions, but they are not soft. Most are threadbare, stained, and covered with the marks of 1,000 other girls who have sat here before you. There is a smell that you will come to recognize as the scent of the harem itself: incense, sweat, unwashed feet, and something sour like old milk. It clings to your skin, gets into your hair, and fills your nose until you almost forget what clean air tastes like. You breathe shallowly, wishing you could hold your breath forever. The other women do not welcome you. You are just another mouth to feed, another pair of hands to do the endless work, another possible rival. Some look at you with boredom, others with open hostility. A few do not look at you at all. One or two old women glance up and then return to their sewing, faces as blank as the walls. You realize that in this place, kindness is a rare currency, spent only on those who might repay it with favors or secrets. You are given a thin blanket and told where to sleep. There are no beds, only crowded sleeping mats on the floor. Your new home is a corner near a drafty window. You curl up, shivering, as the cold creeps into your bones. The woman who tells you where to go speaks quickly and with little patience. You understand only a few words, but her meaning is clear. Do not make noise. Do not cause trouble. Do not take more space than you need. You try to ask a question, but you are silenced by a glare. Here, questions are dangerous. Answers, even more so. It is safer to stay quiet, to watch and listen, to learn by imitation rather than invitation. Soon enough, a strict looking woman enters, her expression sharp as a knife. She is older, but there is no kindness in her wrinkles. She is the mistress of the harem, the one whose word is law. She examines the new arrivals with a practiced eye, pinching arms to judge strength, pulling hair to check for lice, making notes in a language you do not understand. If you flinch, you are slapped. If you speak, you are ignored. You are property, to be cataloged and sorted, nothing more. When she finishes, you are lined up against the wall, told to undress, and given rough linen tunics to wear. Your old clothes are taken away and never returned. Some girls cry, most do not. There is no privacy, no dignity, just a slow parade of shame. You are shown the basic rules: how to kneel, how to bow, how to respond to a command with a lowered gaze and a word of obedience. You do not know what will happen if you disobey, but the scars on some of the older women tell you enough. In the harem, everything is about obedience. You do not belong to yourself. When the mistress leaves, the room falls into a hush. The older girls whisper in corners, making alliances and trading gossip. The younger ones huddle together, eyes wide and fearful. You sit alone, staring at your hands, trying not to cry. There is no comfort to be found here. Loneliness settles around you like another blanket. Your first meal is served in silence. You are given a bowl of watery gruel and a chunk of hard bread. You eat quickly because you are hungry, but also because you have already learned that the slowest go hungry. There is no second helping. When you finish, you return your bowl and wait for instructions. In the days that follow, you begin to understand your place in this new world. You are nobody. Your name is not used, only a number or a nickname if you are unlucky. You speak only when spoken to. You work, you eat, you sleep, and you try not to be noticed. Being noticed is dangerous. You learn that the older women run everything. They control the food, the chores, and the gossip. They decide who gets the best sleeping spots and who gets the worst. You quickly find out that even a glance in the wrong direction can earn you a slap or a week of the worst tasks. There are favorites, but you are not one of them. You are too new, too small, too forgettable, The only relief comes at night, when the lights go out and the whispering stops. You lie awake, listening to the breathing of dozens of other girls, the distant sounds of music and laughter from parts of the palace you will never see. You wonder if anyone at home remembers you. You wonder if there is any point in remembering yourself. After a while, you stop wondering. The harem has its own gravity, and soon you feel yourself sinking into its depths, becoming just another face in the crowd, another story that no one will tell. Your days in the harem begin before the sun rises and finish long after it sets. Sleep, when it comes, is shallow and crowded by the heavy breathing of bodies pressed too close together. If you are lucky, you manage a few hours before the mistress's sharp voice cuts through your dreams like a knife. There is no gentle awakening, just the order to move, and you must move quickly, because those who are slow are punished first. Your first chore is cleaning. There is always something to scrub, dust, or carry. The floors are never truly clean, no matter how much you scrub. Dirt is ground into every crack between the stones, mixed with the grease from countless meals and the tears of women who have been here far longer than you. The soap is harsh and lye based, leaving your hands red, cracked, and stinging. It feels as if your skin has been boiled, and sometimes you wonder if that would actually be easier. Water is precious. You haul it in heavy buckets from a well in the courtyard, tripping over uneven stones as you go. The buckets are too big for your arms, and the water sloshes over the sides, soaking your thin slippers and chilling your feet. When you reach the kitchen, you find yourself at the back of a line of girls, all waiting their turn. There is never enough for everyone. The older women shove you aside, and you have learned to let them. If you fight, you might end up with no water at all. Then comes laundry, a never ending tide of soiled garments, stained bedding, and rags used for purposes you would rather not think about. You kneel by basins, scrubbing with knuckles raw until your fingers go numb. The water in the basins turns cloudy and gray, but the cloth never looks truly clean. The smell lingers, clinging to your skin and hair. Sometimes you try to imagine that you are washing away your old life, but nothing ever feels washed away. Everything is just as dirty as before. Cooking is the next ordeal. You are not allowed to prepare the actual meals. Those tasks are reserved for the favored few who have earned a crumb of trust. Instead, you peel vegetables, slice onions until your eyes burn, and sort through sacks of lentils or beans, picking out stones and worms. You see little of the food you help prepare. More often than not, your own meal is a thin porridge or a crust of stale bread. You learn quickly that the cooks keep the best scraps for themselves, and you are lucky to snatch a morsel from the bottom of the pot when no one is looking. The smell in the kitchens is overwhelming, sometimes sweet, sometimes rotten, always thick with smoke and sweat. There is no such thing as a clean surface. Flies buzz everywhere, feasting on the same crumbs you would gladly eat yourself. You try to ignore them, but sometimes you wonder what it would be like to be a fly, able to come and go as you please, never worrying about where your next meal will come from. Once the kitchen chores are finished, there is sewing, mending, and endless repair work. Everything in the harem is old, patched, and worn thin by years of use. You learn to sew small, careful stitches, patching holes, and darning socks with hands that shake from exhaustion. If your work is not perfect, it is ripped out and you must start again. The older women criticize constantly, rarely offering praise, always finding fault. They have learned, just like you, that kindness is in short supply here. Cleaning the mistress's quarters is the worst job of all. Her rooms are a little grander, but not by much. The floor is layered with old carpets that never seem clean, no matter how often you beat them. Her possessions, combs, bottles, mirrors, must be polished to a shine, but you must never look into them yourself. You have seen what happens to girls who break something or leave a streak on the glass. Their screams echo through the halls long after they are dragged away. Everywhere you go, you are watched. Older slaves, tasked with keeping order, roam the corridors. Their loyalty is to the mistress, not to you. If they catch you idling, whispering, or taking an extra bite of food, they report you immediately. Punishments are swift and public: a slap, a scolding, a threat of worse. You are always on edge, always waiting for the next order, the next reprimand. There are moments of respite, but they are short and few. Sometimes, while you are folding linens or sweeping a forgotten corner, you allow yourself to remember a time when your hands were not at always busy, when you could sit outside and feel the sun on your face. Those memories are dangerous, though. They make the present harder to bear, so you push them away, focusing on the endless list of tasks that never, ever seems to shrink. By nightfall, your body aches, your back throbs, your knees are bruised, and your fingers are stiff and sore. You eat whatever scraps are left, crawl into your corner, and hope to sleep. But rest is hard to find. The noise never truly stops. Somewhere, someone is always coughing, whispering, or crying. You clutch your thin blanket and try not to think about tomorrow, knowing that it will be exactly the same as today: dirty, endless, and gray. There is no escape from the work, just as there is no escape from this place. In the harem, you are defined by what you can endure, and in every day you discover that you can endure a little more than you ever thought possible. You quickly learn that humiliation is not a rare occurrence in the harem. It is not a punishment reserved for the worst offenses. It is not even a lesson. Humiliation is as routine as washing the floors, as inevitable as hunger. It is not about you, but about everyone who is lower than someone else. And in the harem, almost everyone is lower than someone. Your mistress rules with her voice, sharp and loud, cutting through the air and slicing your self-esteem to pieces. She does not need to beat you every day. Words are a more efficient tool and far more lasting. She scolds you for moving too slowly, for moving too quickly, for being too quiet, for daring to ask a question. She sneers at your accent, mocks your clumsy attempts to learn the language, laughs at your fear and confusion. Sometimes her laughter is echoed by other women, eager to please her or to prove their own superiority. Mistakes are inevitable. No matter how carefully you carry a jug of water, one day it will slip from your hands, the heavy clay shattering on the floor. The sound is a death knell. The room goes silent, and you feel dozens of eyes on your back. The mistress storms over, her face twisted with anger, or is it delight? You cannot tell. She does not ask how it happened. She simply declares you stupid, useless, incapable. If you try to explain, she shouts louder, drowning out your voice. If you hang your head, she tells you to look at her when she speaks. Sometimes you are slapped, sometimes you are not. The slap is not the real punishment. The real punishment is standing in the middle of the room while everyone watches, while everyone pretends not to watch. The real punishment is feeling yourself become smaller and smaller, a single mistake shrinking you into nothing. The older women, the ones who have been here longest, barely react. They know it is your turn today, and tomorrow it will be theirs. No one steps forward to help. No one dares. Other times, humiliation comes not from the mistress, but from the older women who control the daily rhythms of the harem. They are quick to criticize your work, always ready with a comment about how you fold linens the wrong way, how you clean too slowly, how your sewing is crooked. They give you nicknames that sting: donkey, mouse, little fool, and use them in front of others. You are laughed at for your ignorance, for your accent, for your small mistakes. If you are unlucky, one of the favorites of the mistress might decide you are amusing. She might ask you to dance clumsily for the others, to sing a song in your broken language, to retell the story of how you ended up here. Laughter follows, never with you, always at you. You learn quickly not to cry, because that only makes them laugh harder. You keep your face as blank as you can, hiding your shame behind a mask of obedience. Inside, you feel smaller each day. Sometimes you are humiliated simply for existing. Your clothes are inspected in front of everyone, your hair examined for lice, your body searched for bruises or scars that might lower your value. You stand naked while the older women criticize your shape, your teeth, your skin. If you are too thin, you are mocked for being sickly. If you are too round, you are called lazy and greedy. There is no way to be right. You are always wrong. You are often made to eat last, sitting on the cold floor, waiting for everyone else to finish. By the time it is your turn, the food is cold and picked over. Sometimes there is little left. If you complain, you are told you should be grateful to eat it all. You say nothing. You eat what you are given and try not to look at the others as they laugh and chat among themselves. Occasionally, the humiliation is private, whispered in your ear by someone who resents you for a reason you do not understand. You are nothing, she hisses. No one will ever want you. You believe her, because why would you not? Everything in this place reinforces the lesson that you are nothing, a body without a name, a shadow without a voice. At night, you replay these moments in your mind, wondering what you could have done differently. Maybe you should have bowed lower, spoken less, moved faster. You think if you try harder, maybe tomorrow will be different. It never is. The cycle continues, day after day, humiliation baked into every moment. It becomes so normal that you stop noticing it. You stop noticing yourself. After a while, you realize that everyone around you is just as broken, just as hollow. The ones who laugh the loudest are often the most afraid. The ones who humiliate others are desperate to avoid humiliation themselves. You understand, deep down, that the system is designed this way to keep everyone fighting for scraps of dignity, too exhausted and afraid to imagine a different life. You adapt because you have no choice. You shrink yourself, make yourself invisible. You learn to laugh at your own expense, to bow lower, to speak less. You become skilled at predicting what will anger your mistress, what will amuse the favorites, what will keep you safe for another day. You become, in time, exactly what they want you to be: silent, obedient, forgettable. And so, humiliation is not an exception, but the air you breathe. It is in every command, every glance, every silence. It is a weight that bends your back and bows your head until you almost forget what it felt like to stand up straight. Food is never something you look forward to. If you ever dreamt of banquets, bowls overflowing with fruit, rich stews, and sticky pastries, you have learned to wake up. The reality in the harem is as gray and uninviting as everything else. Eating is not a pleasure here. It is a necessity, a struggle, a calculation, a daily contest where the only prize is survival and the only strategy is humility. You do not eat with golden spoons, nor do you sit at a grand table. Instead, you line up, bowl in hand, in a narrow hallway that smells of boiled vegetables, spilled oil, and bodies packed too tightly. You shuffle forward, listening to the clatter of cheap clay bowls and the murmur of tired voices. Sometimes, if you are unlucky or simply new, you are pushed to the end of the line by someone stronger, older, or simply more desperate. The food itself is simple, and that is the kindest word you could ever use for it. Each morning begins with a porridge so thin it barely counts as food at all. The cooks ladle it from a massive pot, and you can see your reflection in the watery surface. The flavor is a memory, something that vanishes the moment you try to grasp it. Sometimes there is a crust of bread so hard you must dip it in water for a long time just to chew. On better days, there is a slice of onion, a wedge of cheese gone sharp with age, or, rarely, a single olive. These things are treasures, jealously guarded, eaten quickly before anyone can ask to share. Lunch and dinner blur together in your memory because they are so similar. The midday meal might include a scoop of lentils, limp vegetables, or a piece of boiled meat that is mostly bone and sinew. If it is a festival day in the palace, the cooks might serve you a spoonful of greasy stew that tastes vaguely of chicken, though you have never seen a feather in it. You eat with your head down, careful not to drop a single grain. Sometimes, if you finish too quickly, hunger gnaws at you all afternoon. But if you eat too slowly, someone will nudge you aside and scrape the last of your portion for themselves. There are rules about food, unwritten but strict. Favorites of the mistress are allowed extra servings or better scraps. You are not one of them. The oldest slaves claim the choicest bits with the confidence of experience. If you are caught with more than your share or accused of taking it, you are punished. Once you saw a girl whipped for sneaking a scrap of cheese into her sleeve. She screamed, and no one spoke to her for days after. Hunger is a teacher, and it does not teach mercy. Sometimes there is no food at all. Maybe the supply wagon is late, or the master has decided to punish the entire harem for some perceived slight. On those days, you wait, your stomach folding in on itself. You lick the inside of your bowl, scrape crumbs from the table, and wonder if you could eat a piece of linen if you chewed long enough. The air is heavy with silent resentment. Fights break out over nothing, girls snapping at each other for stepping too close or breathing too loudly. You learn to find food where you can. You become skilled at spotting a dropped bean, a forgotten crust, a piece of fruit rolling under a bench. You wait until the end of the meal, searching for leftovers in the serving pots, hoping for a bit of fat or a sticky piece of rice. Sometimes the kitchen scraps include orange peels, wilted greens, or bones picked clean by the palace dogs. You eat what you find, and you do not complain. Complaints are for people with something to lose. Food is never clean. There are worms in the bread, sometimes small stones in the porridge, and always the faint taste of mold or smoke. You ignore these things because what choice do you have? Your stomach aches most days, twisting with hunger or churning with pain from something spoiled. Illness is common. You see girls doubled over after a meal, their faces pale and drawn. The mistress blames them for weakness and tells them to work harder. Special food is reserved for special occasions and never for you. When the master has guests, the kitchen fills with smells that drive you mad: roasted meat, fresh herbs, sweet pastries. The air is thick with longing. You are not allowed near these meals. If you are lucky, the scraps filter down to the lowest servants, and maybe, if you are careful and quick, you find a bit of pastry crust or a sweet raisin. More often, you just smell the feast and go to bed hungry. The worst days are the days of punishment, when the entire harem is put on bread and water for a week. The bread is stale, the water is tepid, and your energy drains away until you can barely stand. You feel your body shrinking, your skin stretching over sharp bones. You do not dream of cakes or roast meat anymore. You dream only of being full, of a day when you do not think about food at all. You watch as some girls waste away. You see them growing thinner and paler until one day they simply do not get up. No one speaks of them after that. The food is divided among those who remain. You begin to understand that hunger is not just physical. It is a hunger for comfort, for dignity, for the smallest scraps of pleasure or relief. In the harem, hunger is your constant companion, a shadow that follows you through every day and into every sleepless night. You do not talk about it, you just learn to live with it. You might think that living among so many women would bring comfort, even camaraderie, but the harem is not a sisterhood. It is a battleground paved with whispered threats and quiet hostilities. Every day, you are reminded that everyone here is both a victim and a rival. The closest thing to friendship you find is uneasy alliance, fragile, temporary, always threatened by hunger, fear, and envy. From the moment you arrived, the older women took your measure with narrowed eyes. They are the veterans, hardened by years of disappointment. Their kindness is rationed, like everything else in this place. If they offer advice, it is because they expect something in return, or because they enjoy feeling superior. If you make a mistake, their laughter is sharp and mean. They have learned that mercy is a weakness, and that those who show it are often trampled. You want to trust someone, to believe in loyalty, but the harem rewards caution more than openness. There are hierarchies, invisible but always present. At the very top are the favorites of the mistress, the women who have managed to survive the longest or have been lucky enough to please the master. They hold power not because they are strong, but because they are necessary. They control the best chores, the largest portions, the softest sleeping spots. If you cross them, your life becomes miserable in ways both petty and profound. They can have you moved to the coldest corner, assign you to scrub the latrines, or simply spread rumors that make others avoid you. They rarely dirty their own hands. There is always someone eager to do their bidding. Then there are the cliques, groups formed by shared language, shared history, or simple desperation. Sometimes you find yourself drawn into these circles, hoping for a scrap of protection or belonging. But cliques are fickle. They dissolve over petty arguments or a single piece of bread. The alliances you form one day are just as easily broken the next. You quickly learn not to reveal too much, not to rely too heavily on anyone. At the bottom are the newest, the weakest, the sickest. They are the easiest targets for cruelty. You were once one of them, and you remember well the endless teasing, the stolen food, the isolation. It is easier to join in than to resist. Sometimes you catch yourself laughing at someone else's misfortune, feeling guilty but powerless to stop. The harem is a school for survival, and survival is rarely gentle. In the rare moments when the mistress is away, you hear laughter, real laughter, not the mean spirited kind. Some women tell stories of their childhoods, places they have not seen in years. For a moment, they are girls again, not slaves. But these moments are fleeting. As soon as the mistress returns or a favorite appears, the old rules reassert themselves. Smiles fade, words die on tongues, and everyone returns to her role. Sometimes, two women become close, sharing secrets, scraps of food, or whispered dreams of escape. You envy their intimacy, but you also fear it. You have seen friendships weaponized, confidences betrayed to the mistress for a promise of favor. One day, a woman is your closest companion. The next, she will not meet your eyes. You never know whether she betrayed you or was simply warned away. In the harem, trust is always risky, always costly. There is jealousy, too, simmering beneath the surface. The younger, prettier women resent the favorites. The older women resent everyone younger. Newcomers are watched for signs of special treatment, and any attention from the master or his guards is a reason for suspicion or scorn. The competition is not just for food or comfort, but for any scrap of power or attention. Some women grow cunning, learning how to flatter, how to eavesdrop, how to manipulate. Others simply give up, going silent and shrinking into the background. You learn quickly that words can wound just as deeply as fists. Rumors spread like smoke, impossible to contain. One whispered accusation about theft, laziness, or flirtation can destroy your standing overnight. The mistress encourages this. She likes to see you at each other's throats, so she remains the only true authority. If you ever unite against her, she divides you with a few cruel words and the promise of a reward. Still, there are rare moments of kindness. When you are sick, someone slips you a piece of clean cloth for your forehead. If you are punished, a sympathetic look might meet yours across the room. These moments do not last, but you cling to them. Sometimes, kindness is as simple as someone letting you have the last sip of water or covering you with an extra blanket on a cold night. These gestures are precious, but you never know when they will come or from whom. You try not to become bitter, but the environment makes it difficult. Day after day, you watch as hope shrivels. The laughter, the alliances, the moments of comfort, they are all fleeting. You become more guarded, more calculating, more like the others. You learn to keep your head down, to avoid the attention of the favorites, to say little and reveal less. Eventually, you stop longing for friendship. Survival becomes your only companion. You realize that in the harem, everyone is alone, even when surrounded by 100 other women. Illness in the harem is a fact of life, a shadow that lurks behind every corner and follows you wherever you go. It is not a question of if you will get sick, but when and how badly. The air itself feels unhealthy, thick with the mingled smells of bodies, old linens, and the dampness that never quite disappears from the stones. Your lungs ache in the winter, your skin prickles with sweat in the summer, and there is never a time when you feel truly well. Coughs echo through the rooms at night, punctuated by the wet gasps of girls too weak to hide their misery. The thin blankets do nothing against the chill that seeps up from the floor, and you often wake shivering, your teeth chattering in your skull. Sometimes you lie awake, listening to the hacking, hoping you are not next, dreading the moment when a fever settles in your bones. When you are sick, there is no rest. The chores do not stop, and neither does the mistress's temper. If you show weakness, you are accused of laziness. If you collapse, someone else is forced to take your place, and her resentment simmers for days. You learn to hide your cough, to mask your trembling hands, to pretend that you are stronger than you feel. Admitting illness is as dangerous as admitting hope. Parasites are everywhere. Lice crawl through your hair and burrow into your skin, leaving you scratching until you bleed. Fleas bite your ankles as you sleep. Worms twist in your belly, stealing what little nourishment you manage to swallow. Everyone has something, and everyone pretends not to notice. The itching, the discomfort, the shame, they become another layer of your existence. When sickness strikes in force, a wave of fever, a rash that spreads from mat to mat, the mistress does not panic. She is angry, not afraid, because illness disrupts her routines. She orders the sick to be separated, crowding you into a corner of the room as if proximity alone can prevent the spread. You are given less food, more chores, and the stern warning not to die, where someone might trip over you. The palace has a healer, but he is more interested in the health of the master and his favorites than the slaves in the harem. When he does visit, he arrives with the air of a man performing an unpleasant duty. He carries a bag of dried herbs, small vials of liquid that smell worse than anything you have ever tasted, and a knife for bloodletting. His hands are cold, his words brusque. He mutters about imbalance, about evil humors, about the importance of sweating out the sickness. He might press a dirty rag to your forehead or force you to swallow a bitter brew, but he never looks you in the eye. Bloodletting is his answer for almost everything. If you have a fever, he cuts your arm. If you have a cough, he does the same. The pain is sharp, but you learn not to flinch. You are lucky if the wound does not fester, lucky if you do not feel weaker afterward. Sometimes the girls who are bled do not recover. They fade, shrinking into their blankets, eyes glassy and skin ashen, until they simply stop moving. Herbal remedies are more common, though just as unpleasant. Boiled roots, sour leaves, and bitter seeds are brewed into potions that burn your throat and churn your stomach. You are told they will make you strong, but you feel no different. The older women offer their own cures: onion poultices for a cough, garlic for worms, a strip of onion tied to your wrist to draw out a fever. You try them all, hoping for relief, but mostly you just stink of onions. There is no privacy in sickness, just as there is none in health. When you are ill, everyone knows. Some show pity, others disgust. No one wants to sleep near you, fearing contagion. You are forced to lie on a mat near the door, where the cold drafts make your suffering worse. If you are lucky, someone might bring you a cup of water or a scrap of bread. If not, you are left to shiver alone. Death from illness is common. You see it so often that it hardly surprises you anymore. Sometimes a girl simply does not wake up. Sometimes she is found in the morning, her skin blue and cold. The body is taken away without ceremony, buried outside the palace walls, or dumped in a pit. There are no prayers, no mourning. You are told to forget her name, to move on. The mistress replaces her with another girl from the market, and life continues as if nothing has happened. You are left with the knowledge that your body is just another tool, easily broken and just as easily replaced. You do not expect care or comfort, only survival. You become an expert at ignoring pain, at pushing through fatigue, at convincing yourself that this cough is not so bad, that this rash will fade, that you are stronger than whatever disease is clawing at your insides. When you do recover, you are weaker than before, but there is no time to rest. The chores are waiting, and so is the mistress. There is no reward for survival, only the grim satisfaction of having endured another ordeal. You learn to value small mercies, a night without fever, a day without pain, the brief respite of feeling almost normal. In the harem, health is a privilege, not a right. Sickness is just another part of the endless struggle. You accept it because you must. There is no other choice. You probably once believed that washing was a simple thing. In your old life, even if the water was cold and the soap was homemade, you still found time to scrub the dirt from your skin, to comb the tangles from your hair, to enjoy the feeling of being almost clean. Here in the harem, cleanliness is not a right, but an occasional precious accident, like finding a stray coin in the dust or catching a glimpse of the sky through a high, narrow window. Water is rationed, always, even when the weather is hot and the air heavy with the stink of unwashed bodies. You are permitted only what the mistress allows. The well is outside the harem's walls, and only the favored girls are sent for fresh water. You are not one of them. Your turn to wash comes maybe once a week, or once every 10 days, and then only if the cistern is not running low or the guards are in a generous mood. The rest of the time, you must be content to splash your face with what is left in the bottom of a basin, cloudy, lukewarm, sometimes already used by others. Bathing, when it happens, is not the luxurious soaking you once imagined. There is no perfumed steam, no gentle hands or soft towels. You strip, shivering, before a chipped basin. The older women watch to make sure you do not use more than your share. You scrub your skin with rough cloth, feeling the grit grind into your pores. If there is any soap, it is harsh and caustic, burning the cuts on your hands and leaving your skin raw. The water turns gray in moments, filled with the evidence of your exhaustion. Washing your hair is an ordeal. The tangles grow wild, especially when you sleep on straw mats, tossing and turning in sweat. When you are finally allowed to wet your head, you do so quickly, ignoring the complaints of the others waiting behind you. There is no time for careful combing. Your fingers are your only brush, and the best you can hope for is to pull out the worst of the knots and the bugs that have made themselves at home in your scalp. Lice are everywhere. They do not care about your rank or your age. You try to hide the scratching, but it is impossible. Everyone is infested. Some women spend hours picking through each other's hair, crushing the nits between their fingernails. It is a sad sort of intimacy, a reminder that your bodies are never truly your own. The mistress inspects heads with a stick, prodding and parting hair, scolding and threatening the ones who are too infested. If she decides you are too dirty, your head is shaved, and you must endure the double humiliation of baldness and mockery. Your clothing does not help. You wear the same linen tunic day after day, its rough fabric scratching your skin, the seams yellowed with sweat and grime. Once a week, if you are lucky, you are allowed to wash your tunic in a shared basin. The water is cold and quickly turns brown. You beat the cloth against a stone, hoping to shake out the filth. No matter how hard you try, the stains never truly come out. The tunic is hung on a line in the courtyard, stiff with soap residue and never quite dry. Odors become part of your world. At first, you try to fight them, covering your nose, turning your head away from the worst offenders. But soon you stop noticing. The harem smells of humanity, sweat, menstrual blood, rotting teeth, old milk, mildew, smoke. You blend in with the others, all of you equally pungent, equally disregarded. The only time anyone cares about your smell is when the master visits, and then you are forced to scrub yourself raw, douse yourself in cheap perfumes, and pray he does not notice the truth beneath the fragrance. Pests thrive in this environment. Cockroaches scuttle across the floors at night. Rats nest in the shadows, sometimes stealing bits of bread or even nibbling on sleeping feet. The older women tell stories of a time when things were better, but you see no evidence of it. You are always itching, always scratching, always aware that you are never, ever truly clean. Toilets are a shared misery. The latrine is a dark hole at the far end of the harem. There is no privacy, just a curtain that does not reach the floor and a smell that never fades. Cleaning the latrine is one of the worst punishments. You have done it before, holding your breath and praying for it to end quickly. No one thanks you, and no one offers to help. When you return to the group, everyone pretends not to notice the lingering stench on your skin. Menstruation is another ordeal. Cloth rags are passed from woman to woman, washed and reused until they fall apart. There are never enough. You feel the shame each month, trying to hide the stains on your tunic, desperate to avoid the attention of the mistress. If you are caught soiling your bedding, you are punished in front of everyone. There is no compassion, no understanding, just more work, more humiliation. Despite it all, you adapt. Your standards change. You come to cherish the rare moments of cleanliness, a face washed, a head free of lice, a day when you can change into a newly washed tunic. You remember what it was like to feel clean, but the memory grows fainter with each passing month. Here in the harem, hygiene is not a habit, not a comfort, but a luxury reserved for someone else. You learn, as you must, that filth is as much a part of your life as hunger or fear. You accept it because you have no choice. You stop thinking about what you have lost. You are just grateful for what little you can keep. Once upon a time, clothing might have meant comfort, color, or even pride. In your old life, whatever scraps of cloth your family owned were patched and repatched, but they belonged to you. Here in the harem, clothing is only another uniform of survival, a symbol of status, a layer of modesty, a second skin that never feels clean, never fits quite right, and never belongs to you. Your first tunic in the harem is issued to you like a tool or a chain. It is a rough linen thing, faded by many washings, the color indeterminate, somewhere between gray and brown, as if it has given up on being anything else. The seams itch against your skin, especially where your body is sore or where you have scratched yourself raw. There are stains on the fabric, old blood perhaps, or kitchen grease, or something unidentifiable. You do not ask, you do not want to know. You are allowed only one or two changes of clothing, if you are lucky. Most of the time, your tunic is all you have. Undergarments are a privilege reserved for the favorites or for older women who have found ways to curry favor with the mistress. The rest of you simply tie what you have tighter and pray the cloth does not tear during the day. You wear the same tunic to work, to eat, to sleep. The fabric grows stiff, and even after washing, it never feels truly fresh. When the mistress or one of the favorites inspects you, she may declare your tunic too filthy for her taste. In those rare moments, you are issued a new one, which only means that it belonged to someone who is now dead, or promoted, or sent away. The cycle continues. You never own anything new. Everything has a history, and none of it is yours. Shoes, if you have them at all, are wooden sandals or battered slippers, the soles worn so thin you can feel each stone beneath your feet. In the cold months, your toes turn blue and numb. In the hot months, they crack and bleed. Socks are a rumor whispered among the women who remember better days. You quickly learn to walk softly, to avoid attention from those who might decide your slippers are better than theirs. Head coverings are sometimes required, sometimes forbidden, depending on the whims of the mistress or the visit of an important guest. When headscarves are distributed, you tie them tightly, trying to hide your hair and your face. It is not modesty, it is safety. There is always the risk that someone will accuse you of vanity if your hair is too well kept, or of laziness if it is tangled and filthy. The line is razor thin and always moving. Your hair, once perhaps a source of pride, is now just another burden. With water scarce and lice rampant, combing your hair is an exercise in futility. It tangles and mats, especially at night when you toss and turn on straw mats with no pillow and no privacy. When lice become too much, or when the mistress is in a particular mood, your head is shaved. The loss feels like a defeat, another piece of yourself stripped away. You try not to cry as the older women mock your bald scalp, calling you egg or rat, or worse. The hair will grow back, but the humiliation stays longer. Cosmetics are reserved for a select few. The favorites sometimes receive small pots of coal or a vial of cheap perfume, gifts from the master or the mistress, intended to enhance their beauty. The rest of you are left with your plain faces, your cracked lips, your dry skin. You might try to pinch your cheeks for a hint of color, but it only highlights the hollows beneath your eyes. Sunlight is rare in the harem, and you soon lose the healthy glow you once had, replaced by a sallow, sickly pallor. The mistress sometimes lines you up for inspection. She walks down the row, commenting loudly on every flaw: too thin, too fat, too pale, too dark, too tall, too short, too much like a child, too old to be useful. She tugs at tunics, pulls at hair, lifts chins with a cold finger, searching for any reason to punish or ridicule. You stand still, silent, hoping her attention will pass quickly. Any reaction, a flinch, a scowl, a sigh, is noted and remembered. The mirrors in the harem are reserved for the upper ranks. You catch glimpses of yourself only by accident in a basin of water or a piece of polished metal. When you do, you barely recognize the girl staring back. She is thinner than you remember, her eyes sunken, her hair cropped or tangled, her expression guarded. Your hands are rough and calloused, your nails bitten to the quick. You are not ugly, not exactly. You are simply unremarkable, your individuality erased by uniformity, fatigue, and fear. Sometimes you remember how it felt to dress for a festival, to put on your best tunic, and feel pretty for a day. That memory belongs to someone else now, someone younger, someone freer. Here, appearance is not about beauty or pride. It is about blending in, surviving, drawing as little attention as possible. You grow older quickly in the harem. Even the youngest girls seem to age overnight, their faces settling into lines of worry and fatigue. The mistress calls you all old women, regardless of your true age. Laughter becomes rare, and when it comes, it is sharp and edged with bitterness. You look at your hands and wonder how they became so worn so quickly. Every piece of clothing, every strand of hair, every scar and blemish is a reminder. You do not belong to yourself. You are dressed for a role, measured for usefulness, judged for flaws you cannot help. The girl you once were fades a little more with every passing day, replaced by someone you never planned to become. Dreams do not belong in the harem, but you have them anyway. They sneak into the cracks between chores, in the brief moments of silence before sleep, or while you stare at the stained ceiling and wait for morning to come. Sometimes the dreams are soft, memories of open fields, the smell of baking bread, the laughter of people whose faces you have almost forgotten. Sometimes the dreams are harsh and sharp, like the mistress's voice, reminding you that this place is now your only reality. In the beginning, you try to keep hope alive. You imagine escape or rescue or even some miracle that will let you walk free. Maybe you will catch the master's eye and be granted your freedom. Maybe a great fire will burn down the palace and set you loose. Maybe the world outside has not forgotten you, and someone, anyone, will come to find you. These dreams keep you going in the first months, their sweetness a small comfort during the longest nights. But the harem is a master at killing dreams. Every day, the endless repetition of chores, the monotony of the same faces, the same voices, the same rules, wears your hope thin. You stop talking about escape, even to yourself. You learn that longing only brings more pain. There are girls who refuse to give up, who whisper about breaking free, who watch the guards and the walls for weaknesses. They are the ones who get caught trying to slip a note to a kitchen boy, or who climb too close to the courtyard wall and are dragged back by their hair. You see what happens to them: punishment, isolation, sometimes worse. After a while, those girls grow quiet or they disappear. You learn to be cautious, even with your own thoughts. You begin to police your daydreams, steering them away from forbidden hopes. Instead, you try to imagine small comforts, a day without punishment, a meal that fills your belly, a night when no one screams in their sleep. Even these modest dreams are dangerous, easily dashed by a single cruel word or a slap for some imagined slight. There are other dreams, too, darker ones that come when you close your eyes. Nightmares of running endlessly down corridors that never end, or of standing naked before a jeering crowd, unable to cover yourself, unable to move. Sometimes you dream you are back at home, only to wake with a gasp and realize that home is gone forever. Sometimes you dream of freedom, only to wake with the bitter taste of disappointment in your mouth. Reality, you discover, is both more mundane and more merciless than any dream. There is no great drama, only endless routine. You wake, you work, you eat, you sleep. Days blur together, indistinguishable except for the rare occasions when something truly terrible or truly miraculous happens. Even then, the feeling passes quickly, swallowed by the relentless sameness of your life. You become an expert at pretending. You pretend to listen, pretend to care, pretend to obey. You smile when you are expected to. You bow when required. You learn to hide your emotions so deeply that even you begin to forget they exist. You pretend so well that sometimes you almost believe it yourself. You learn to focus on what is real and immediate: the scratchiness of your tunic, the ache in your arms after hauling water, the roughness of stale bread against your teeth. You notice things you never noticed before: the rhythm of footsteps in the hallway, the subtle shifts in the mistress's mood, the way the older women divide the work and the food. Survival becomes a matter of observation, not imagination. Every now and then, someone tells a story about life outside, about a place where people are kind, or about a festival with music and dancing. For a moment, the harem listens, even the most jaded among you. These stories are dangerous. The mistress discourages them, calling them idle lies or nonsense for fools. But they persist because even the harshest reality cannot fully stamp out the human need for something better, even if it is only a story whispered in the dark. Some women manage to find a kind of hope in religion or ritual. They say prayers under their breath or hide small tokens beneath their sleeping mats. You watch them and wonder if faith helps, or if it is just another form of pretending. You try a few prayers of your own, but the words feel empty. If there is a God who listens, he has turned his face away from the harem. In time, your dreams become quieter, less ambitious. You stop hoping for miracles. You stop waiting for rescue. Instead, you learn to take satisfaction in surviving another day, in avoiding the worst of the mistress's wrath, in finding a moment's peace with your own thoughts. You discover that you can survive almost anything if you do not expect too much. Every so often, when the moon is bright and the world outside the harem seems close enough to touch, you let yourself dream again. Just a little, maybe of a future, maybe of a past, maybe of something as simple as sleeping in a bed alone. These are the dreams you tuck away deep inside where no one can take them from you. The reality of the harem is this: life is a series of small compromises, of hope carefully rationed, of dreams reduced to the barest minimum. But even here, in the heart of routine misery, you discover the stubbornness of the human spirit, the refusal to give up completely, no matter how many times reality tries to grind you down. There is no such thing as a day off in the harem. The concept is as foreign as laughter that does not have an edge, or food that does not leave you hungry. Work is not just a part of life, it is life itself. You wake to it and fall asleep thinking of what still remains unfinished. It is your punishment, your distraction, your only guarantee. In the harem, work is eternal. Each morning, before the first traces of dawn stain the windows, the mistress's sharp voice slices through the darkness. You stumble up from your mat, muscles stiff, eyes gritty with fatigue. You barely remember your dreams anymore, but the sense of heaviness lingers in your bones. There is no time for a slow start. If you hesitate, you risk a slap, a scolding, or extra chores. So you learn to move quickly, even when every part of your body begs for more rest. The first tasks are always the same: sweep the floors, haul water from the courtyard, scrub the steps leading to the mistress's rooms. The brooms are little more than bundles of brittle twigs, shedding more dust than they collect. Your hands are permanently red and swollen from the cold in winter, from the harshness of soap in summer, from the constant scraping and hauling and scouring that never seems to end. You become so familiar with the stones under your feet that you could draw them from memory. Each crack, each worn edge, each place where grime gathers, no matter how hard you scrub. The routine never changes. After cleaning comes the laundry, a mountain of soiled tunics, stained bedding, and rags. The older women stand guard, barking instructions, criticizing your scrubbing, tearing your work apart for imagined faults. If you pause to catch your breath, someone else shoves you aside, eager to prove their own worth. The laundry is washed in a shared basin of icy water, your hands numbing until you cannot feel your own fingers. You wring out the heavy cloth, your arms trembling, your back aching, and still the pile never seems to shrink. When the washing is done, there is sewing, always sewing. Tunics tear, hems unravel, and the mistress is unyielding about the neatness of stitches. You become deft at patching holes and darning socks with tiny, careful stitches, your eyes burning from the effort. If your work is sloppy or slow, you are made to rip it out and start again while the others snicker or glare. There is no pride in this work, only the hope of avoiding notice. Kitchen chores are relentless. The cooks are tyrants in their own right, lording over the soup pots and bread ovens, meting out the best scraps for themselves and saving the hardest work for you. You peel vegetables until your fingers are sore, sweep the ashes from the ovens, scrape burnt porridge from the bottoms of iron pots. You carry heavy baskets of food, jars of oil, sacks of flour. You are always underfoot, always in the way, and always one mistake away from a blow or a shouted insult. If the master has guests, the entire harem is thrown into chaos. Everything must be cleaner, shinier, quieter. You're expected to work twice as fast, with half the sleep and none of the thanks. On these days, you learn to disappear into the background, to anticipate the next order before it is barked. You work until your legs give out, until your thoughts blur into a haze of exhaustion, until all you want is to collapse onto the cold floor and disappear. There are other chores too. You fetch water for bathing, though rarely for yourself. You mend shoes and fix broken furniture, polish the mistress's small collection of jewelry, and tend to the tiny garden behind the harem walls. The garden is not a place of beauty. It is a plot of dry earth, yielding little more than bitter herbs and a few scrawny vegetables. But you weed it anyway, sweating under the sun, your back bent and your spirit sagging. Even at night, the work does not end. There are bodies to move, beds to rearrange, sick girls to tend, water to fetch for those who are feverish or in pain. Sometimes, if a storm is coming, you are sent onto the roof to patch leaks with mud and scraps of cloth. If the rain still finds its way inside, you are blamed for not working hard enough. Rest is a myth. When you finally crawl back to your mat, every muscle aching, your hands raw and your mind numb, there is little comfort to be found. The other women are just as weary, just as silent. Sometimes you hear someone crying softly, muffled by a blanket. You think about joining her, but you are too tired. Tomorrow will be the same, and tears solve nothing. You learn to measure your days not by hours, but by tasks completed. There is no satisfaction, only relief at not being the one singled out for punishment. Sometimes you lose yourself in the rhythm of the work. The endless repetition dulls your thoughts, shields you from the misery of your situation. You tell yourself that if you just keep moving, just keep working, the day will end and another will begin. You begin to forget that life could be anything else. The idea of rest, of leisure, of a day spent doing nothing at all becomes impossible to imagine. You do not work for reward or recognition. You work because work is all there is. And so you endure. You work because you must, because it is the only thing standing between you and the mistress's anger, because it is the only way to keep your hands busy and your mind from wandering where it should not go. In the harem, work is the closest thing to certainty you will ever know. There is a peculiar kind of dread that comes with waiting for the master. It is not a single event, but a recurring trial, a test you must endure again and again, always uncertain, always exhausting. The threat of being noticed by the master hangs over the harem like a heavy shroud, stifling every conversation, every movement, every attempt at comfort. You learn quickly that to be invisible is often the best you can hope for. The ritual begins with rumors. Someone overhears a guard speaking, or the mistress makes a cryptic remark. Suddenly, the harem is a hive of anxious activity. The older women begin to whisper. The favorites grow tense. The newcomers look confused, but pick up on the atmosphere soon enough. Every corner buzzes with speculation. Who will he choose tonight? Who will be sent to the baths, dressed and prepared for inspection? Who will be punished for some past slight, remembered only at the most inconvenient moment? You try not to stand out. You keep your head down, your voice soft, your eyes fixed on your work. Yet there is no guarantee that this will keep you safe. Sometimes the master chooses the quiet ones, the plain ones, the unlucky ones. Other times he is drawn to the bold or the beautiful, the ones who dare to meet his gaze. The selection seems random, dictated by whims no one can predict. When the signal comes, an order from the mistress, a shout from a guard, the chosen women are rounded up. If you are among them, your stomach knots with terror. If you are not, you breathe a sigh of relief, knowing your turn may come tomorrow, or next week, or next month. There is no escaping the rotation, no matter how well you hide. Preparation is its own ordeal. You are stripped, scrubbed, and doused with harsh smelling perfumes. Your hair is combed until your scalp stings, your body inspected for bruises or blemishes. The older women critique your posture, your walk, your expression. They prod and poke, hissing instructions in your ear. Smile, but not too much. Keep your eyes lowered. Do not speak unless spoken to. Their words are meant to help, but the underlying message is clear. If you fail, you have only yourself to blame. Clothes are selected for you, a tunic that is less threadbare than your usual one, perhaps a scarf or a piece of cheap jewelry. Sometimes you are painted with kohl or given a hint of color for your cheeks, not because anyone cares about your beauty, but because appearance is a weapon here. You are a product to be displayed, and the master's mood will dictate your fate. The waiting is the worst part. You stand in a small, cold room with the others, fidgeting and glancing at the door every time footsteps echo in the hallway. Some women try to calm themselves, whispering prayers or old songs under their breath. Others sit rigid and silent, their fear so strong you can almost smell it. The hours stretch and bend, each minute thick with tension. Sometimes the master never comes at all, and the entire ordeal is repeated the next day. When the master finally arrives, he does not look at you, he looks through you. His gaze sweeps the room, pausing here and there, calculating, bored. The mistress stands by his side, offering suggestions, her voice syrupy and false. The master's word is law. If he points to you, you step forward. If he ignores you, you melt back into the group, your relief tempered by the knowledge that you are still not safe. Those chosen are led away, and what happens next is both expected and unspoken. You are a possession, a tool for someone else's pleasure or amusement. There is no right to refuse, no recourse, no comfort. Sometimes the master is indifferent, barely acknowledging your presence. Sometimes he is cruel or careless, leaving you bruised in more ways than one. You learn to detach, to float above your body, to wait for it to end. The aftermath is always the same. You return to the harem, eyes downcast, your dignity another casualty. The other women do not ask questions. Some look at you with pity, others with envy or suspicion. The mistress might be satisfied, or she might find fault, punishing you for something that was never in your control. The next day, your chores resume as if nothing has happened, your ordeal already fading into the endless routine. Yet, even if you are never chosen, you are not untouched by the process. The fear seeps into your bones, coloring every interaction, every moment of rest. You learn to live with it, to accept that your body is not your own, that your fate is determined by whims and appetites beyond your understanding. The threat of the master's attention becomes another constant, as familiar as hunger, as grinding as exhaustion. Some women attempt to curry favor, hoping to become a favorite and gain some measure of protection or comfort. Others do everything they can to become invisible, blending into the background, suppressing any spark of personality. You are not sure which approach is wiser. In the harem, nothing is certain except the waiting, waiting to be chosen, waiting for it to end, waiting for tomorrow to bring the same uncertain dread. You grow older, and the waiting becomes part of you, a tension in your muscles, a stiffness in your smile. You do not dream of rescue anymore. You do not even dream of freedom. You only dream of being left alone, of a day when the master's gaze passes over you without pausing, of a night when you can sleep without fear. In the harem, that is the highest hope you dare to have. Fear is the true master of the harem. It is more present than the mistress, more powerful than the master, more enduring than any chain. It grows in every shadow, thickens the air, presses on your chest until you cannot breathe. It changes your posture, your walk, the way you speak, the way you think. You live by its rules. The threat of violence is ever present, always implied, sometimes immediate. You never know when it will explode. Sometimes it is the mistress. Her temper is unpredictable, her punishments creative. Sometimes it is a favorite, eager to keep her own fragile power by putting others in their place. Most often, it is the men, the master, the guards, the visiting dignitaries who look at you as if you are not quite human, not quite real. You hear stories from the older women about what happens when someone gets out of line. They tell you in whispers, eyes darting to make sure no one overhears. A girl who talks back, a girl who refuses a command, a girl who tries to protect herself. These are the girls who vanish, who are sent away in the middle of the night, or who return with bruises and a silence that cannot be broken. There is no justice in the harem. There is only power and those who wield it. Sometimes violence is public, a lesson for everyone. The mistress might order a girl to be whipped for a broken bowl or a dirty floor. She gathers the women in a circle, forces everyone to watch. The blows are sharp, echoing off the stone walls. You keep your face blank, your eyes lowered. Sympathy is dangerous. If you show it, you might be next. Later, you tend the girl's wounds in secret, if you are brave enough. You whisper words of comfort you barely believe, because what else can you offer? More often, violence is private, hidden in the small spaces between duties. A shove in the corridor, a slap in the dark, a hand gripping your arm too tightly. The favorites enforce their rank with pinches, sharp words, and sometimes worse. If you cry out, you are told to be quiet, to be grateful it was not worse. If you complain, the mistress laughs, accuses you of lying, of causing trouble. You learn to swallow your pain, to carry it like another secret. The master's violence is of a different order. It is ritualized, almost ceremonial. When he chooses you, you know there is no escape. Resistance is pointless. You do not scream because you have seen what happens to those who do. The act is quick or slow, gentle or rough, but always without care for your comfort, your dignity, your will. You become a thing, a body to be used and discarded. Afterwards, you wash yourself with water that will never feel clean, and you do not speak of it. Some of the guards are worse. They are bored, poorly paid, and always looking for entertainment. They corner you in empty corridors, make promises or threats, offer you scraps of food or the threat of punishment. Sometimes they simply take what they want. You learn to move quietly, to avoid dark corners, to keep to the company of others whenever you can. But sometimes you cannot avoid them. You add their violence to the long list of things you must endure. Fear becomes instinct. You learn to read faces, to sense danger in the smallest gesture, a glance from the mistress, a raised eyebrow from a favorite, a guard's heavy footstep in the hallway. You measure every word, every movement. You make yourself small, try not to be noticed. Some women become angry, lashing out at others, passing on the violence to those even weaker. You try not to judge them. You understand. There are nights when you cannot sleep, your body tense, your mind spinning with memories you would rather forget. You hear a door slam, footsteps approaching, a girl's muffled sobs. You pull your blanket tighter, trying to make yourself invisible. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you do not. There is no protection in the harem, no one to turn to for help. You know that if you were to disappear, the world would move on without you. You are replaceable, a shadow among shadows. Your only defense is caution, your only weapon silence. You do not dream of escape, only survival. You hope that tomorrow will be quieter, that the mistress's anger will cool, that the master's interest will turn elsewhere. Violence is not always physical. Sometimes it is the steady grind of humiliation, the endless reminders that you are powerless. A cruel word can cut as deep as a knife. A pointed laugh can wound more than a slap. You gather these hurts to you, press them down, bury them where they cannot be seen. You do not speak of fear, you carry it with you, a companion more constant than hunger or pain. It shapes you, makes you cautious, careful, cold. It is the price of survival in a world where kindness is a myth and violence is routine. You tell yourself that it cannot last forever, but in the harem, forever is just another word for tomorrow. You learn quickly that your body is not only a vessel for labor, but a commodity for reproduction. In the harem, the prospect of pregnancy is both a shadow and a snare, hanging over every encounter with the master, with a guard, with any man who decides that you, for a moment, are worth his attention. For some, pregnancy is a hope, a whispered chance at a different fate. For most, it is another form of bondage. No one speaks openly about what happens when you become pregnant. The rules are not written down, but everyone knows them. If you are carrying the master's child, you may receive special treatment for a while: more food, lighter work, a blanket that is not full of holes. The mistress inspects you herself, searching for signs of swelling belly or sore breasts, interrogating you with eyes that see everything and forgive nothing. If you are lucky, the master claims the child as his own. You are, for a time, lifted above the other women, envied and watched, even served by those who once scorned you. You have a purpose. You might even hope that your child will be granted a better life, perhaps trained as a servant, a musician, or if fortune is especially cruel, another slave in some distant noble household. But you are never truly safe. Your place is as precarious as ever. A single misstep, a rumor, or the whim of the mistress can cast you back down. If the pregnancy is unwanted by the master, or if it is not his at all, the future is far bleaker. You may be sent away in secret, the mistress denying your existence, whispering to the guards to handle it. Sometimes you are simply ignored, left to labor and suffer alone. If the child is born, it is snatched from your arms and carried away before you can memorize its face. Sometimes the baby is never seen again, its fate a secret no one dares to question. Other times, the child remains in the harem, growing up a slave like you, bound by the same walls, the same rules, the same silent fear. Pregnancy itself is a trial. The harem is not a place for rest or gentle care. You continue to work, carrying heavy loads, scrubbing floors, standing for hours, barely allowed to sit. Your back aches, your feet swell, your head swims with hunger and exhaustion. If you complain, you are told that women have always suffered in childbirth, that you are no different. The older women might offer advice: how to sit, what herbs to chew, how to breathe when the pain becomes too much. Their knowledge is patchwork, passed down through generations of misery, full of superstition and wishful thinking. When labor comes, you are lucky if someone is there to help you. Sometimes the mistress sends for the healer, but more often it is just the other women, themselves no strangers to pain. They use rags for towels, boiling water if they are fortunate, prayers if they are desperate. You scream, and no one comforts you. The walls are thin, but sympathy is thinner. Every birth is a gamble, your life against the child's, both against the apathy of a world that will not mourn you. Not every child survives, not every mother survives. You have seen it yourself, blood soaking the mats, a baby born silent, a woman slipping away as dawn breaks, her eyes wide and empty. There is no mourning in the harem. Death is as ordinary as hunger. The mistress sends for the body, the child, and life continues. The chores pile up. The food line grows shorter by one. If the baby lives, there is no celebration. The child is bundled in rags and laid in a corner, its cries barely noticed above the din. Sometimes you are allowed to nurse your own child. Other times, the baby is handed to another woman or to a wet nurse brought in for a few weeks, then sent away. You count the days, afraid to grow attached, knowing that any morning you may wake to find your child gone. For the rare women who become favorites, who give birth to sons the master acknowledges, there may be a small elevation, a private room, an easier chore, the respect of the others. But these stories are exceptions, and you hear them only in whispers, as if saying them aloud will tempt fate. For most, pregnancy is another shackle. You love your child because you must, but you learn quickly to love cautiously. In the harem, nothing belongs to you, not your body, not your future, not even your children. The children of the harem are silent and watchful, learning to be invisible long before they learn to walk. They know the rules. Do not cry too loudly. Do not attract attention. Do not expect kindness. You watch them sometimes and wonder if you were ever that small, that frightened, that resigned. Their lives will not be easier than yours. You pity them, but you also envy their innocence, because for a while, before the world teaches them better, they still believe in comfort, in warmth, in a future that is not already written. When you think about escape, you think of them, your own child, or the child you once were. You promise yourself that you will protect them, that you will survive for them, even if you cannot save them. It is a hope as fragile as any dream, but it is all you have. In the harem, motherhood is not a blessing. It is just another weight to carry, another way to be broken, another reminder that nothing here is truly yours. Death is as constant a presence in the harem as hunger or fear. It lives quietly in the shadows, never far from your thoughts, never absent from your daily reality. In a place where hope is rare and comfort rarer still, you become familiar with the many faces of dying, not just the violent or dramatic ends, but the slow, quiet dissolutions that no one marks and no one mourns for long. It starts with absence. A girl who once slept beside you is gone in the morning, her mat empty, her blanket folded. No one asks where she has gone, not aloud. The mistress says nothing, and the older women just glance at the spot and then look away. Sometimes you wonder if you imagined her, if perhaps she never really existed, if you are forgetting more than just her name. There are many ways to die in the harem. Sickness claims some, especially in the cold months when coughs turn to fever and fever turns to silence. Weakness is not forgiven here. If you fall behind in your chores, you are replaced. If you cannot eat, you wither away. The healer comes rarely, and when he does, he brings little more than false hope and bitter herbs. If you are lucky, you survive. If not, you fade until you are nothing but another empty space. Others die in childbirth, their bodies too tired or too young to survive the ordeal. You have seen it, a woman screaming through the night, her voice rising and falling until suddenly there is only quiet. The mistress sends for rags and boiling water, but sometimes it is just not enough. The baby may live or may not. Either way, there is no time for grief. The chores must be done, the meals must be cooked. Life closes over the loss like water over a stone. Violence claims more than a few. Sometimes it is quick, a blow from the master or a guard, a punishment that goes too far. Sometimes it is slow, a broken spirit, a body worn down by years of hard work and little kindness. You see the signs long before the end: the dull eyes, the slack limbs, the voice that grows softer until it disappears altogether. When a girl stops fighting, stops eating, stops caring, you know her time is short. No one tries to save her. There is nothing left to save. Suicide is a whispered rumor, but you hear it often enough to believe it. A woman who drinks something she should not. A girl who slips away during the night and never returns. The mistress is careful to hide the evidence, but you learn to recognize the signs. The sudden emptiness, the silence that feels heavier than usual, the way the other women avoid talking about her for days afterward. When someone dies, the ritual is brief. The body is wrapped in whatever cloth is available and carried out before dawn. There is no ceremony, no prayer, no mourning. The mistress makes sure the room is cleaned, the bedding replaced, the spot filled by someone new before nightfall. Life in the harem continues, unchanged and unimpressed by individual suffering. If the dead woman had children, they are taken away, sometimes to another part of the palace, sometimes to a distant household, sometimes simply gone. You do not ask questions. You have learned that asking questions only brings trouble. The children are as replaceable as the women who bore them. Sometimes death is a relief. You watch a woman who has suffered for weeks slip away in her sleep, and you feel a strange mix of sadness and envy. At least her suffering is over. At least she does not have to wake up to another day of work, another day of fear. You would never say it aloud, but sometimes you wonder if death is the only true escape from the harem. The mistress shows little emotion at these losses. She simply shrugs, assigns the dead woman's chores to someone else, and moves on. The master does not notice at all. To him, the harem is a collection of faces, easily replaced, easily forgotten. To the guards, death is an inconvenience, a mess to clean up. No one weeps for the lost. You learn not to weep either. Yet, sometimes, when you are alone, you remember the women who are gone. You see their faces in your dreams, hear their laughter in your memory. You wonder if anyone remembers you beyond these walls. You wonder if, when your time comes, anyone will notice. Death is never far. It lurks in the corners, in the cough that does not go away, in the bruise that will not heal, in the silence that follows a scream. You do not fear it as much as you once did. In the harem, death is not an ending, but a release. You live with it, as you live with everything else, quietly, cautiously, always waiting for the next disappearance, the next empty mat, the next reminder that here Nothing is permanent except the suffering. If fear is the silent ruler of the harem, then punishment is its enforcer, the iron rod that keeps everyone in line. You learn this quickly, much faster than you learn the language, the customs, or the routines. The first time you see a girl punished, you realize how little your body belongs to you and how cheap suffering is in this place. The rules are everywhere, yet nowhere. Most are unwritten, but break them at your peril. A dropped plate, a loud word, a wrong glance, an unfinished task. Each can be interpreted as defiance, laziness, or insolence, depending on the mood of the mistress or the whim of a favorite. You try to memorize every line and limit, but the rules shift daily, like sand under your feet. What is permitted one day becomes forbidden the next. In the harem, stability is an illusion. The punishments are as varied as the infractions. The mildest is a slap, quick and sharp, a stinging reminder to keep your head down. These are handed out for the smallest mistakes. A crooked seam, a slow answer, a bowl spilled in the kitchen. Sometimes a favorite will strike you just because she can. You learn to accept it, your face growing numb as your spirit dulls. Worse is the rod. The mistress keeps it within arm's reach, a length of wood, polished by years of use. It leaves bruises that bloom across your arms, your back, your legs. Afterward, you ache for days, but you must keep working. There is no time to rest, no sympathy from anyone. You clench your teeth and keep moving, hoping the pain will eventually fade into the background noise of daily misery. Sometimes the punishments are more creative. You might be forced to kneel on rough salt or dried peas for hours, the hard shapes digging into your skin until you are bleeding. Other times, you are sent outside in the cold or rain, made to stand for hours while the others watch from behind a window. Isolation is a favored tactic. Locked in a dark storeroom or a cramped cell, you are left alone with your thoughts and your terror, wondering when someone will remember to let you out. Food is another weapon. For the slightest mistake, you may be put on bread and water for days. The bread is stale, the water warm and cloudy. Hunger claws at your insides, sapping your strength and your will. You watch the others eat and feel your resentment grow. But complaining is pointless. It only brings more deprivation. Some punishments are meant to humiliate. You may be made to sing, dance, or clean the latrine while the others laugh. You are stripped of dignity as much as comfort, your humiliation serving as a warning to anyone tempted to defy the rules. The mistress and her favorites seem to relish these moments, their laughter echoing long after the ordeal ends. You learn to keep your head bowed and your mouth shut, hoping to avoid the spotlight. There are rumors of worse things, whispered in the dark, of girls locked away for days without food or water, of secret beatings that leave them unable to walk, of scars hidden under clothing and behind haunted eyes. Some disappear and return changed, their spirits broken, their bodies frail. Others never return at all. You do not ask questions. You have seen enough to know that there are punishments even the walls do not witness. If you are unlucky enough to catch the master's attention in a bad moment, his punishments are even harsher. He does not need an excuse, only an impulse. You have seen girls beaten for looking the wrong way, for not smiling on command, for simply being there at the wrong time. The guards, too, take liberties, punishing as they please, often for their own amusement. There is no appeal, no explanation, no hope of fairness. Wounds fester. There is no proper treatment. The healer's remedies are few and often worse than useless. A paste of herbs for bruises, a dirty bandage for cuts. Infection is common. Scars multiply, each one a map of lessons learned the hard way. Your body becomes a ledger of your failures, your resistance, your attempts to survive. Yet, even as you flinch at every sudden movement, you learn to endure. You become skilled at hiding pain, at swallowing tears, at masking your anger and fear. You teach yourself to move quickly, to be invisible, to avoid any notice that could turn into punishment. You help others, sometimes, tending their wounds in secret, sharing the tricks that dull the ache or hide the bruises. But the cost is high. Each punishment chips away at your sense of self, teaching you that you are less than human, less than worthy, less than real. You begin to believe it. The line between discipline and cruelty blurs until all you know is the routine of fear and pain. Punishment is not just a tool for control, it is a way of shaping you, of turning you into what the harem needs: obedient, silent, compliant. You hate it, but you learn to live with it because there is no other choice. In the harem, punishment is a language, one you speak fluently, even when you wish you did not. In your old life, holidays might have meant something. There were feast days and market days, moments when even the poorest could hope for a bit of music, a crust of cake, or the brief luxury of rest. The village would fill with the smell of roasting meat, children's laughter, and, for just a moment, the sense that life could be brighter, sweeter, even if only once a year. In the harem, holidays do not belong to you. The calendar is measured not by the turning of seasons or the arrival of festivals, but by the endless cycle of chores and punishments. You know there are holidays outside the walls, days when bells ring and incense burns, when families gather and the city is bright with noise and color. You sometimes hear the echoes of these celebrations, the distant shouts, the music drifting on the wind, the crackle of fireworks. They might as well be happening in another world. Inside, the mistress is not interested in your happiness. If she acknowledges the day at all, it is only as an excuse to increase your work. When a holiday approaches, the palace is thrown into chaos. The master wants everything perfect for his guests. You are forced to clean the rooms twice over, polish the few bits of silver until they shine, and prepare elaborate meals you will never taste. The kitchens become a battlefield. The cooks bark orders. The air fills with the smoke of roasting meat and the clatter of endless pots. You peel, chop, scrub, and sweat, your own hunger gnawing at you as you prepare food you will not be allowed to eat. Sometimes, after the feast is over, the scraps are thrown to the harem as a gift. More often, The favorites claim the best of what remains, and you fight for a piece of cold bread, a wilted fruit, a bone with a scrap of meat still clinging to it. There is no sense of sharing, no joy in the bounty. The holidays are just another contest, another reminder of your place at the bottom of a ladder that never reaches the sky. You hear rumors about the palace celebrations, the music, the dancers, the tables groaning with food. Occasionally, the master demands that some of you dress up and serve his guests, smiling and silent as you pass trays of sweets and wine. You see the glittering world up close, but you are never allowed to taste it. The guests do not see you. To them, you are just part of the background, another body to fetch and carry. If you spill anything or break something, the punishment is immediate and public. Once, a girl dropped a tray and was beaten in front of everyone. The laughter of the guests stung worse than the blows. For you, the only real holiday is a day when nothing bad happens, a day without punishment, without notice, without any more suffering than usual. Sometimes the mistress is distracted, or the master is away, and the harem relaxes for a few hours. You sit in your corner and dare to laugh, tell stories, or remember a happier time. These moments are fragile, easily broken by a single harsh word, but you hold on to them as tightly as you can. The older women sometimes try to keep old traditions alive. In secret, they whisper prayers or sing fragments of songs from home. On nights when the moon is full, someone might tell a story about a festival in a faraway land, about bonfires and dancing and food enough for everyone. For a little while, you are transported, no longer a slave, but a girl in the crowd, her face lit by firelight, her heart full of hope. But dawn always comes, and the magic fades. You do not celebrate your own milestones. Birthdays pass unnoticed. Anniversaries of loss and survival are marked only in your own mind. If you remember, you keep it to yourself. Joy is a private thing, dangerous if discovered. You learn not to expect congratulations, gifts, or even a kind word. You learn to hide your happiness as carefully as you hide your pain. Some women try to create small rituals, a scrap of ribbon hidden in a sleeve, a tiny token passed from hand to hand, a whispered wish at midnight. These gestures are small rebellions, proof that you are still human, still capable of meaning and memory. But they are easily crushed by the daily grind of work and fear. The mistress despises sentiment. If she finds your token, she destroys it. If she hears your song, she silences it. You are reminded that everything in the harem, even joy, belongs to someone else. The city outside celebrates while you wash floors and peel vegetables. You can smell the smoke from bonfires, hear the distant music, see the flicker of lanterns through high windows. You do not envy them. Not exactly. You are too tired, too cautious, too used to disappointment. But sometimes, in the darkest part of the night, you let yourself remember what it felt like to celebrate, to belong, to hope for something better. You learn that survival is your only real festival. Each day you endure is a day claimed from the world that wants to forget you. You celebrate in small ways, a stolen smile, a quiet moment of rest, a memory held close. The holidays pass without you, but you endure, and in the harem, endurance is the only triumph allowed. You do not plan for old age in the harem. It creeps up on you anyway, quiet as dust, and just as inevitable. The years are not counted in candles or celebrations, but in aching joints, graying hair, and the way the others stop noticing you. When you first arrived, the oldest women seemed impossibly ancient, stooped, silent, hands curled like claws from years of hard work and cold. You never thought you would become one of them, but here you are, older than you meant to be, older than the world wants you to be, older than anyone ever needs. No one is old by choice. Old age is not the result of careful living, but of luck and stubbornness. You have seen so many fall before you: disease, violence, childbirth, simple despair. If you last long enough, your survival becomes its own form of defiance. Yet it brings no rewards, no comfort, no respect. The mistress sees your slowness as a nuisance, your aches and pains as an inconvenience, your presence as an offense. You are not revered as a matriarch. You are just another mouth to feed, another pair of useless hands. The signs of aging are everywhere. Your skin, once smooth, is now marked with scars, calluses, and the stains of countless chores. Your back aches from years of bending. Your knees crack with every step. Your fingers are stiff and swollen. Your hair turns gray, thin, brittle, a favorite target for mockery by those still young enough to care. You lose teeth, and with them, the pleasure of even the meager food you are given. Your vision blurs, your hearing dims, your strength fades away like the last trace of a forgotten dream. The work does not change because you are older. If anything, it gets harder. The younger women move faster, their energy both enviable and irritating. You are given the worst tasks: cleaning the coldest corners, washing the dirtiest rags, tending to the sick and dying. The mistress trusts you less, assuming that age brings laziness or rebellion. If you make a mistake, the punishment is the same, if not worse, for daring to be both weak and troublesome. The younger women rarely listen to you. They have their own alliances, their own hopes, their own fears. Sometimes they come to you for advice, but more often they simply ignore you. You find yourself repeating the stories of your youth out of habit, forgetting that no one is listening. Even the friends you once had have been taken away, dead, disappeared, or too lost in their own misery to remember you. Loneliness is another of old age's many gifts. There is no retirement, no comfortable corner set aside for you to rest. If you become too weak to work, you are quietly cast aside. The mistress may move you to a small room near the kitchens, or simply leave you on your mat, forgotten and ignored. You receive less food, fewer blankets, almost no attention. Sometimes a younger woman will show you a bit of kindness, a crust of bread, a moment of warmth by the fire, but she does so in secret, knowing that generosity is not encouraged. If you are lucky, the mistress might find a way to rid herself of you entirely. Sometimes old women are sold off to other households as servants, where the work is less demanding, but the loneliness even deeper. Sometimes you are given to the temple as charity, to spend your last days sweeping floors for indifferent priests. Most often, you simply fade away, your absence noted only by the sudden emptiness of your sleeping space. Death, when it comes, is not tragic. It is expected, unremarkable, almost routine. You die as you lived, quietly, inconveniently, without fuss. The body is removed before dawn, the mat quickly filled by a new arrival. The harem forgets you as quickly as it forgot all the others. Even your name, if it was ever truly yours, is lost. There are no memories kept for the old. No stories are told about your life. No tears are shed for your passing. You become a ghost long before you are gone, a shadow in the corners, a warning to the young, a reminder that here everything ends in silence. You sometimes wonder if you will remember yourself when the end finally comes, or if you too will fade, piece by piece, until nothing is left but dust and darkness. Old age is not feared in the harem. It is not even hated. It is simply ignored. You try to hold on to the small dignity that remains. A secret memory, a song from your childhood, the kindness of your own hands as you comfort yourself. You watch the new arrivals and know they too will follow your path, their hopes ground away by time and toil. Surviving to old age is the harem's only bitter reward, a slow erasure, a gradual vanishing, a lesson in the art of being overlooked. You do not rage against it. Rage is for the young, and you have spent your anger long ago. You accept your uselessness because you must. You disappear long before you die, and no one notices the difference. In the harem, freedom is a word spoken in whispers, a dangerous hope best hidden away. Yet, even when the rest of your dreams have faded, the thought of freedom never quite leaves you. It nags at you in the quiet moments, while you are scrubbing floors, or lying awake at night, or watching the sunlight crawl across the wall. Even when you know better, even when you have seen what happens to those who dare to reach for it, you cannot help but imagine what it would feel like. At first, the idea of escape is a fantasy, bright and reckless. The walls do not seem so high, the guards not so watchful, the world outside not so cruel. You hear stories from new arrivals, rumors of girls who climbed the garden wall, or bribed a guard, or ran away during a festival. No one ever admits to seeing them again, but the stories persist, feeding the restless part of your mind that refuses to accept the present as the only possible future. You plan your own escape 1,000 times. You imagine slipping out with the laundry, disguising yourself as a visitor, scaling the walls in the dead of night. You think of the road beyond the palace, the forest that lies past the city, the faraway village where no one knows your name. You rehearse what you will say if you are caught, how you will beg or bribe or fight. The plans are elaborate, full of details and contingencies. For a little while, these dreams sustain you, giving shape to the formless days. But the harem is very good at crushing hope. You see what happens to those who try. A girl disappears, and her absence is marked only by the reassignment of her chores. Sometimes she reappears, broken in body and spirit, her example held up as a warning. The guards are alert, the walls are high, and you realize that escape is not just a matter of courage or cleverness. It is a matter of luck, and luck in the harem is always in short supply. Some women give up entirely. They say freedom is just another lie, a trick to make you suffer more when you remember what you have lost. They stop talking about escape, stop listening to the stories, stop looking at the sky. You envy their resignation, their ability to accept what is. But you cannot let go so easily. Even if you know it is foolish, the dream of freedom becomes your secret, the thing that keeps you alive when nothing else does. Sometimes your longing is not for escape, but for a different kind of freedom. A day without fear, an hour of laughter, a moment when you can be yourself without risk. You crave small freedoms, the chance to sleep late, to eat until you are full, to sit in the sun. You dream of speaking without measuring every word, of singing without fear of punishment, of touching another's hand without suspicion. These freedoms seem even further away than the world outside the walls. The mistress knows the power of hope. She keeps it on a tight leash, allowing just enough to keep you moving, to keep you working, but never enough to let you rise above your station. She sometimes dangles promises of manumission, release for good behavior, for loyalty, for bearing a child the master claims as his own. But everyone knows how rare such miracles are and how easily they can be revoked. You see women who were promised freedom only to find themselves trapped by a new rule, a new whim, a new lie. On sleepless nights, you find yourself thinking about what freedom would cost. You would leave behind the other women, the ones who comfort you in the worst moments, who share your misery and your rare joys. You would step into a world that does not want you, that might treat you as a beggar, a criminal, or worse. You know that many who escape become slaves elsewhere, or fall into the hands of new masters, or die cold and alone in the street. Still, you would risk it all for the chance, however small, that life could be different. Sometimes you whisper your dreams to another woman, your voice is low and trembling. You speak of home, of the past, of a future that is not yet written. She might smile or she might shake her head, but for a moment you are both children again, daring to hope. The next day, nothing has changed, but you hold on to that conversation as a secret treasure, proof that the dream of freedom is not quite dead. You find freedom in unexpected places, a moment of kindness, a joke shared, a story told in the dark. You remember who you were before the harem, and you imagine who you might become if you could leave. Sometimes you forget the walls for a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat, you are free. As you grow older, your dreams grow smaller, but they do not vanish. You may stop believing in escape, but you do not stop believing in dignity, in friendship, in the possibility of something better. The world outside may be as cruel as the harem, but even a taste of freedom, real or imagined, gives you the strength to endure. In the end, the dream of freedom is both a curse and a gift. It is a wound that never heals, but also a spark that keeps you moving through the darkest days. In the harem, you have learned to survive without hope, but you have never learned to live without dreaming of escape. At some point, you realize that your life in the harem is not just a collection of personal tragedies or private humiliations. You are part of something larger, a mechanism, a system designed to grind down hope and individuality, to turn flesh and spirit into function. The walls around you are not only stone, but habit, tradition, the willful blindness of those who benefit from your suffering. You are one cog in a machine that feeds on silence, endurance, and the ability to disappear into routine. You see it most clearly when you watch the newcomers arrive. They shuffle through the same corridors, wide eyed and silent, clutching their blankets as if they are shields. You watch them learn the rules, make the same mistakes, cry the same tears. They are broken down, piece by piece, until they move and speak like the rest, efficient, obedient, forgettable. You try to warn them at first, but your words do not reach them. Pain is the only language anyone truly understands here, and everyone must learn it for themselves. The mistress is part of the mechanism too, though she pretends otherwise. Her authority is real, but borrowed. She enforces the rules, but she did not invent them. She keeps order with punishments and rewards, but even she is replaceable, as easily discarded as any one of you if she steps out of line or loses her usefulness. The favorites, the guards, even the master, they are all trapped in their own ways, their power dependent on the continued misery of others. The master himself is a shadowy figure, more myth than man. He is the justification for your existence and the reason for your suffering, but you rarely see him. His moods dictate everything: the schedule, the punishments, the tiny privileges that sometimes pass for kindness. He is a reminder that you are not a person, but a possession, a piece in a game that you will never win. Day after day, the mechanism grinds on. The routines are relentless, rising before dawn, working until your muscles tremble, enduring the constant noise and chaos, the casual cruelty of those who think nothing of your pain. The chores are never done, the punishments never far away, the moments of rest always interrupted. You learn to hide within the work, to lose yourself in the endless repetition, to treat every day as a problem to be solved, every hour as a challenge to be endured. You sometimes try to imagine what it would take to break the mechanism. Revolution is a word for fairy tales, but you wonder if, someday, the gears might seize, the walls might crumble, the silence might be broken by more than a single scream in the night. But these are dangerous thoughts, and you quickly push them aside. The mechanism is bigger than any one person. It has survived for generations and will survive long after you are gone. You come to understand your own smallness, your own insignificance in the eyes of those who control the machine. Your suffering does not matter to them. Your joys, your fears, your dreams, they are invisible, irrelevant, erased by the needs of the system. You are not remembered as an individual, but as a number, a face in a crowd, a pair of hands that performed a task and then disappeared. No one records your story. No one asks your name, no one marks your passing. But even as the mechanism reduces you, there are moments when you catch glimpses of your own humanity and the humanity of those around you. In a shared look of sympathy, a whispered joke, a secret act of kindness, you remember that you are more than your role. The mechanism can grind you down, but it cannot entirely erase the stubborn flicker of self that survives in spite of everything. That is your quiet rebellion to remember, even for a moment, that you once belonged to yourself. You think about all the women who have passed through these walls, generations of lost faces and forgotten voices, all part of the same relentless process. Some have tried to fight, some have learned to endure, some have been destroyed, and some have disappeared without a trace. You are all parts of the same mechanism, your lives overlapping and blending into the great gray monotony that defines the harem. At the end, you ask yourself if it was all for nothing. Was there meaning in your endurance, in the friendships you risked, in the small acts of kindness that survived the worst days? The mechanism wants you to believe there is no meaning, that survival is its own purpose, that hope is just another gear to be ground to dust. But you are not so sure. Maybe, in some distant future, someone will look back and wonder about the lives spent within these walls. Maybe your pain will mean something, or maybe it will be forgotten, lost to the endless noise of history. You do not know. You are too tired to care. In the end, you are not a heroine, not a martyr, not even a tragedy. You are a part, an unremarkable, replaceable part of a machine built for suffering. You survive because there is nothing else to do. And as you close your eyes at the end of another endless day, you remember that in the harem, the mechanism does not stop for anyone. Not for you, not for the next girl, not for anyone.